Welcome back to church time.
Hey y'all, it's Julie and my dad here again, and this week we're doing midweek worship again for y'all, and we hope that y'all enjoy it, and we cannot wait to see y'all in person again, so let's worship together now. Your grace is enough, more than turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you.
Welcome back to another episode of Pandemic Preaching, your favorite. I don't really have any updates as of right now. We're hoping when school starts back, we'll be able to get back to our regular church services. I know we're praying for that hard. I know you guys are. I know you guys are ready to get back to eating all of the food we used to provide you, which I'm sure was your favorite part, and seeing each other in person. As soon as I get an update, I will let you know, though. I have a feeling it's coming, though. So just keep praying, keep staying patient, keep watching our videos, and we'll be back soon. So the last few weeks, we have been studying the parable of the prodigal son, right? And if you haven't been watching or listening to the videos over the past few weeks, go read the story of the prodigal son, because it's one of the one of the most popular parables, if not the most popular parable that Jesus told. And we've been kind of studying the different aspects of it over the course of the last few weeks, kind of pulling apart, focusing on different characters. The first week we focused on the son. The second week we focused on the older brother. And then the third week we focused on the father and kind of their actions and the little things that they did, and kind of pulled some application from them, because after all, Jesus told this story to prove a point, and so there's a lot to be learned from this story. So tonight I want to finish off this kind of series we're doing on the prodigal son, and challenge you with a couple more things that we learned from this story. So in the parable of the lost son, or the prodigal son, the younger son, just to kind of give you a quick recap of him, he was only concerned with the opportunities that he wanted, that he desired while he was on earth. So earthly possessions, earthly desires. That's what he was focused on. He spent a lot of time dreaming and planning and living away from home, living this lavish lifestyle that he thought was going to bring him joy, bring him happiness, when in the end it didn't. But he was looking for worldly opportunity to find meaning. And we all know how that worked out for him. It didn't work out too well. And in the moment when he was at his lowest, he decided to seek God instead of chasing after earthly opportunities. Now, the irony of this story is that it's very likely that the younger son thought that returning to his father meant that all of his opportunity would be gone, that he had squandered his father's wealth, all of the things that he thought were going to bring him happiness were gone. He was basically about to tuck his tail, go back to his father, and the opportunity for him to live a blessed, happy life is gone. And so he returned home. He knew that's what he had to do. He apologized, and we see what happened. Just to recap again what happened. Luke 15:22. It says, "But his father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. And kill the calf we've been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. For the son of mine was dead and is now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found. And it says, so the party began. So when the younger son returned, we're gonna talk about this story in the sense that the father is God, okay? So, because that's what this is referring to. So when the younger son returned to God, right, his opportunity wasn't taken from him. It was actually given to him. And so he wasn't punished in that moment. He was actually praised and celebrated, okay? Now there's someone here that's watching this. Either you have been in this position or you are in this position now where you've been looking to the world for opportunity. It doesn't matter in what form that comes in. You have been looking to the world for your opportunities, and you're looking to them to see how valuable they can be, or what they can or can't do for you. Right? There are some of us in here watching this that we're at the lowest point in our lives, and we feel ashamed of the worldly things that we've been chasing. We realize that all of the things that we built up in our head that we thought were going to bring us happiness and joy, when we finally caught up to them, when we finally tracked them down, we realized they were not worth the chase. And so some of you might be watching this feeling like your opportunities are gone because you've squandered your life looking for worldly recognition. Now, obviously, you being students, you have a lot of life left to live. But it can feel that way. It can feel sometimes like you've wasted a lot of your time chasing things that didn't matter. And so you need to hear this, okay? You need to hear this. The first thing I want us to see from this story tonight, the first point I want us to get on this last session for this parable is that you don't need to seek opportunity. You need to seek God, okay? When you seek God, opportunity seeks you. Okay, so I'll say that again, because I want you to write this down if you're taking notes or anything. You don't need to seek opportunity. You need to seek God. Because when you seek God, opportunity seeks you. Now, there's a difference between seeking God first, praying to Him, and then making a decision instead of making decisions and then just asking God to bless them along the way. Okay? There's a huge difference. And I think this is where a lot of Christians get confused, right? Some of us spend more time paving our own way, and then as we go, asking God to just bless it because we've made our own decisions, right? We go, this is how I want to live my life, but I'm just going to ask God to bless it along the way. And then we get to a point where we know it's not going to work out. We know that this is not the path that we're headed down. Some of us are humble, and we go, well, maybe if I wasn't so selfish, maybe if I chased after God's will instead of my own desires, I wouldn't be in this position. And then some of us, we feel like as Christians we've done the right thing because we chased our dreams, but along the way we just asked God to bless it, right? And then those types of people, who do they blame when something doesn't work out? And I'll let you answer that one. But let me ask you a question. What opportunities do you want to have? Think about that for just a second. What opportunities do you want to have? What dreams are you chasing? What type of life are you wanting to live? Why not take all of those hopes, all of those plans, all of those dreams to God first, right? Because this is where we save time. This is where we save anger and frustration, humiliation. Take all of those dreams first, go to God, and then trust God's timing in the process. If God does not want us to be a part of those things, if He has something greater in mind for us, then we have to we kind of leverage God's will above our own and save ourselves from a lot of the disappointment, right? So why not take those things, trust in God's timing, believe in His timing, and yes, it will take patience, but I believe we will experience God in a new way because He is now navigating our future. He's navigating our life in an exciting way. Okay? So think about that tonight. Think about that. What opportunities do we want to have? And are we asking God first, is this what you want for me? Okay? Instead of doing those things and then asking God later, God, please bless this because I don't know, this is what I want, and I'm hoping this is what you want for me, right? Save yourself the frustration. Ask God at the beginning, God, is this where I'm supposed to be? And the second thing I want to just think about tonight is that I noticed while reading this is Just as God forgives us without limitation, we should forgive each other. Now, you're probably thinking, I know this as a Christian. I've been told this 1,000 times. I've been taught this 1,000 times that I'm supposed to forgive others. But in this particular story, there's a much more relevant application on how we can feel sometimes, even if we don't verbalize it to another person. So the older brother in this story was furious at the loving father for offering forgiveness, right? He was furious at him. The older brother thought that since he had made all these right decisions, that he had stayed by his father's side, that he was better than and deserved more than his younger brother. And there's a word we use to describe people like that, and it's the word entitled, right? The older brother thought he was entitled to more of his father's respect, more of his father's money, because he did the right things, right? And then he thought that if he did these right things, that if he continued to do them, that he would somehow be praised and celebrated more than the younger son. But he didn't get that, right? And here's the beautiful thing about what happened, okay? The loving father offered forgiveness to the younger son while at the same exact time affirming the older brother. So while he forgave the younger son, at the exact same moment, in the exact same breath, he affirmed the older brother. Look at Luke 15:31. It says, his father said to him, look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day. So here's the trap that I see Christians falling into, right? And they fall into it over and over again. We fall into it over and over again. I think it's fair to say that even Christians are not immune from holding grudges. Would you agree? So it's part of our sin nature, I believe, to hold grudges against people who have done things to us wrong, no matter how small or how great. We hold grudges. So there's people here that are watching this that think that since this other person made the wrong choice, that they should have to pay for the wrong choice. And we kind of put ourselves on a pedestal that is higher than theirs and look down upon them. We condescend them. Even if it's not verbally, in our own minds, we think they should have to pay. I'm light years ahead of them, and they're going to get the consequences for their actions. But think about it like this. This is a good example. You remember when you were younger? Maybe you're still going through this with your siblings now. Maybe it happened when you were 5, 6, 7 years old. But you remember when you were younger, and your sibling may have done something terrible, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, something that you didn't do, by the way. You watched them do it, but you didn't do it. And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, when mom and dad get home, this is going to be good. They are going to get it. They're in so much trouble. Like, I cannot wait to watch their reaction when they find out what so-and-so did, right? And then when mom and dad get home, they sort of just forgive your sibling. Or if they don't forgive them, the punishment is not as severe as you thought it should be, right? I think anybody who grew up with siblings probably had this happen at some point. I know my sister watched me get in trouble a lot. And I'm not going to say that it was her fault most of the time that I got in trouble. But she definitely sat back in the, kind of to the side and watched it all happen. And she was kind of rooting for the spankings. But anyway, we're past that point now. We have a great friendship, great relationship. But if you've ever been through that, I believe if you have a sibling, if you've ever been through that phase of your life where, and I was the same way with her, by the way. So not saying that she was the only one. I was just the one that got in the most trouble. But you've probably experienced this, even if you can't remember the exact moment when it happened. You probably can remember thinking to yourself, they're going to be in huge trouble. And then you're disappointed when they don't get in trouble. But here's the deal. God forgave you. He forgave me. He forgave everybody. And he's the one who first loved us, according to John 3:16. And he also forgives us. So just as God forgives us without limitations, we should forgive others, okay? It doesn't make sense to hold on to bitterness. It doesn't make sense for us to not forgive another person. Now, if we learn from whatever happened, sure, yes. But offer forgiveness. The person, there's a quote that I don't know, I can't remember if there's a person who actually claims this quote, but I think it's unknown. But I like this quote. It says, "Not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." Not forgiving someone is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. For those of us who follow Jesus, for those of us who call ourselves Christ followers and Christians, we are required to offer forgiveness. So think about your life, and I know that we preach about forgiveness a lot, but it's more of a burden on you than it is on them. And that's why I like that quote so much, because it affects you equally, if not more, than it affects them when you don't forgive someone. And I know that we preach on, like I was saying, we preach on this topic a lot because it's necessary. We can hold grudges and we can get into this bitter state of mind where we hold on to every little thing that somebody does to us. It could be something as simple as hearing a rumor about something somebody said about us. We don't even know if it's true or not, and we're holding a grudge against that person, right? So we get into this place in our lives when we need to offer forgiveness to people, no matter what they've done, no matter how small or how large their offense is. We need to offer forgiveness for ourselves, okay? Now, if you were in this position with this older son, I think that 99% of the people that were, if you put yourselves in the shoes of the older son, would be frustrated that the father just welcomed the son back, because it's in our nature to be that way, right? But God is slowly trying to change our nature. Jesus is trying to change our nature by telling us this story and telling us exactly how we should respond if we were to be in this position. Right? If you were the older son here, you need to look at your older son like, finally, he's come back home. He's come to his senses. I'm so glad to have my younger brother back. My father's welcoming him with open arms. He's not shunning him. He's not pushing him aside. He's not exiling him. He is welcoming him back with open arms, and he is throwing a party for him. I'm so glad to have him back. Now, that may seem extremely tough for a lot of us, but it's exactly how Jesus said, without exaggeration, by the way, we should be looking at this type of situation, okay? So the question I have to ask is there somebody in your life that you need to forgive? Is there somebody in your life that you need to go and ask for forgiveness, okay? Because it can go both ways. Even though we might be nervous to ask for forgiveness or give it, even though it doesn't seem fair, even though we may still be upset, God forgives us without limitation. And we have to always remember that our sins were so egregious that the penalty for that was death and separation from God for all of eternity. We have to remember the consequences of our sin, the things that God had every right not to forgive us for, would have cost us an eternity without him. So when you think about that, when God forgives us unconditionally without limitations, I think it's easier for us to forgive other people. Now I have one last thing that I want you to consider. Think about all of the things in your life that you consider fulfilling, okay? As you get older, the more things get piled into this because you have kids and you get married and stuff like that. So there's different things, but I'm just going to use a blank slate, just a general idea of what we consider fulfilling. But what would you consider a full life? Okay, if you made a list of 5 things that make your life full, what would it look like? It might be number 1, God; number 2, family; number 3, health; number 4, friends; number 5, let's just say food and water, because you need it to survive, right? So God, family, health, friends, food, water. Okay. Even with this monumental list that we consider necessary, right, for us to be complete, for us to have a fulfilled life, even with this list, we still find room for other things, right? That they may be a little bit more trivial, but it's still important to us. Think about things like a job, a car, a house, money. This is your life, and this is your life from the time you are old enough to work and drive all the way through, until you're old and gray, and you're about, you're retired, and all of those things that you still enjoy, you're trying to enjoy in an older age, but it still makes your life full. This is your life, right? Now, here's the big question you have to ask yourself, okay? If all of those things after number one were taken away, with the exception of food and water because you need them to survive. But let's just say you're not as, you don't have as much food. You don't have many options as you once had. You just have enough to survive. But if all of those things past number one were taken away, would your life still be full? If all of those things were taken away, would your life still be full? These two boys in the story, they put way too much stock in the wrong things. They put way too much stock in trying to get an inheritance of money and wealth rather than building relationships with God and with each other. This is what Jesus is telling us about this story that a lot of us miss. There are plenty of things that we use to fill in the gaps in our lives. And they take the place of our free time, so to speak, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if we didn't have those things, right, and all we had was our faith, would it be enough? That's a question that every Christian has to answer. Would it be enough? Do we recognize that some of us are prodigal sons and daughters? We're living a lavish life, trying to live a lavish life, trying to find fulfillment in the world, and instead, we need to be running into the arms of Jesus and that in order to find our fulfillment, right? Because no matter how hard you try, no matter how long you search, you will always eventually come home empty-handed in the world. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about relationships, family, friendships, jobs. These things are all powder kegs that could eventually derail because of the fallen world that we live in. Nothing is guaranteed in this world. Relationships can fail. Family dynamic can fail. Jobs can be lost. Money can be lost. Friendships, can be lost. And so, there's something about living in this fallen world. We can't rely on a whole lot of people. Even our own family, they're going to let us down, even though they don't mean to, because we live in a sinful world. So we're putting our time and effort into the wrong things when we allow those things to be what gives us fulfillment. Because what happens is when those things are gone, or if they're stripped away from us, our life feels empty. And so if we learn anything from this, is that the younger son learned a more valuable lesson about worldly things than the older son did, because he actually took what was his. He took his inheritance. He went and blew it. He realized that there was much more appreciation and grace for him back home than there ever was in the world, right? And so, are we putting our time and effort into the right things? Are we building the foundation of our lives on the right things that won't crumble? Search your hearts tonight and see if you can relate to this story. It is one of my favorites. There's so many lessons that can be learned from just reading the story over and over again. You find little nuances of application in this story that you once didn't know or didn't come across or didn't even think about. But it came from Jesus' own mouth, right? And he always has been, always will be the best teacher. And when we read these stories that he gave his disciples for a specific purpose, we find a lot of blessing in them in our own life. But the thing that I want you guys to understand is if we read these and we understand the application here, but we don't apply it to our own lives, if we don't put ourselves in the shoes of these characters in these stories and go, is this me? Or have I been this way? Then it's useless, because we're not taking God's word and applying it to our lives. All we're doing is reading it and trying our best to understand it, but we need to apply it. Think about yourself tonight. Think about what position you're in. Have you been a prodigal son and daughter? Are you in the middle of being one of them? And what are you putting your stock in? What are you putting your faith in? Is it worldly things or is it godly things? Because if all of those things were gone, if they were taken away, would you still find fulfillment in who God is? That's all we have for tonight, guys. I love you, and I will see you next week.